The air inside the workshop was heavy with anticipation as the team made their final preparations for Gunner's surgery. Eli was carefully arranging her tools. Jules stood nearby reviewing medical notes, and Desera observed, leaning against the wall with her new leg, its sleek design blending seamlessly into her body. "We're ready for this, right?" Eli asked, her voice steady but laced with a hint of anxiety. "We are," Jules confirmed with a confident nod. "And so is Gunner." Eli took a deep breath, turning to the communications terminal. With a few quick taps, she sent a signal to Aeliana Vale in Alfheim, requesting her presence. They would need her expertise and her magical assistance to fuse Gunner's new arm with his body, just as they had done with Desera's leg. As the message was sent, a faint chime echoed from the terminal, confirming its delivery. "We'll begin as soon as Vale arrives," Eli said, her voice more resolute now. But before the team could settle into the tense waiting, the doors to the workshop opened, and Karina strode in, her face a mask of concern. She was out of breath, her sword still strapped to her back, and her eyes darted around the room as if seeking something urgent. "I've located a small attachment of Black Dawn operatives," Karina said without preamble. "They're hiding out in an old ghost town in Colorado. I need backup." The room tensed at her words. Black Dawn, the organization that had plagued them for so long, had resurfaced once again, this time in a quiet, desolate corner of the world. And with most of the pack out on other assignments, the timing couldn't have been worse. Clara stepped forward immediately, her presence commanding. "Omega and I will go," she said, her voice firm. The massive dire wolf padded silently to her side, his golden eyes gleaming with readiness. "I'm going too," Darren said, standing from the table where he'd been polishing his new shotgun. His voice was resolute, and though he had only recently joined their team, there was no hesitation in his offer. "No," Gunner said, pushing himself up from his chair, his face hardened with determination. "You're not going out there alone." Darren locked eyes with him, his tone steady and unyielding. "Gunner, you need to be here for the surgery. I can handle this." "You've never faced Black Dawn before," Gunner shot back, his remaining hand clenched into a fist. "You don't know what they're capable of." Darren stepped closer, his voice calm but forceful. "I know how to fight. You taught me that. And right now, your fight is here. We'll deal with Black Dawn and be back before you know it." Gunner's gaze flickered to Clara, then to Karina. His frustration was palpable, but he knew Darren was right. He couldn't be in two places at once, and, right now, his focus needed to be on the surgery. Clara stepped forward, placing a hand on Gunner's shoulder. "We'll take care of this. You need to trust us, Alpha." There was a long pause before Gunner finally nodded, though his reluctance was clear. "Fine. But you come back in one piece." Darren grinned, clapping Gunner on the back. "Wouldn't dream of anything else." The sleek black jet cut through the night sky, its engines purring softly as it flew low over the rugged Colorado terrain. Inside the cockpit, the control panel flickered with a series of glowing lights, the aircraft's AI managing every aspect of the flight with cold precision. The rest of the team sat in the back, silently gearing up for the mission ahead. Clara stood by the rear exit, her hands gripping her rifle, her eyes scanning the horizon through the small window. Karina sat across from her, methodically checking her weapons, her face calm and focused. Omega, Clara's dire wolf, lay at her feet, his golden eyes sharp and watchful. Darren, however, was not nearly as calm. He shifted in his seat, glancing toward the cockpit before speaking up. "So, let me get this straight. This jet flies itself? No pilot, just some AI running the show?" Karina looked up, a slight smirk crossing her lips. "That's right. It's flown entirely by AI. Gunner had it installed to maximize efficiency and reduce risk." Darren snorted, adjusting the strap on his shotgun. "Yeah, well, I don't trust that AI thing. No matter how smart it is, it's still just a computer. Give me a human at the controls any day." Clara raised an eyebrow but said nothing. She understood Darren's unease. Many people were still wary of AI technology, especially when it came to something as critical as flying into a potential combat zone. Karina chuckled. It's the best we've got, but don't worry, if the AI ever screws up, I'm sure you can take the wheel. Great, Darren muttered, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Because that's exactly what I need. An AI meltdown while we're flying over enemy territory. Despite his grumbling, the jet landed smoothly on a plateau about 20 miles from the ghost town. As soon as the wheels touched the ground, the rear door opened and the team quickly disembarked, the cold night air hitting their faces like a slap. Outside, the moon cast long shadows over the rocky landscape, and the wind whispered through the trees. Darren stepped out last, glancing back at the jet as if expecting it to take off on its own. When it stayed put, he grunted in approval and turned his attention to the mission at hand. All right, let's ride, Clara said, moving toward the cargo hold. Inside, 4 electric dirt bikes were lined up neatly, their sleek black frames gleaming under the dim light of the jet's interior. Each one was outfitted with quiet motors and rugged tires, built for stealth and speed across difficult terrain. Darren couldn't help but let out a low whistle as he inspected them. Not bad, he said, running a hand over the handlebars. These things got a name? Not really, Karina said, slinging her sword onto her back. But you're welcome to give yours one if it'll make you feel better. Darren smirked. Nah, I'll stick with calling it Trusty Steed. Clara handed him a helmet with a built-in comm system. Let's keep chatter to a minimum once we're on the move. We'll ride about 5 miles out and go the rest of the way on foot. I don't want to alert Black Dawn to our presence. Darren nodded, strapping the helmet on. Got it. They mounted the bikes, the engines humming to life with barely a sound. As soon as they were ready, Clara led the way, Omega loping ahead of them like a shadow. The team moved quickly, cutting through the forest with ease, the quiet motors of the bikes allowing them to traverse the rough terrain without drawing attention. Darren couldn't help but feel a thrill of adrenaline as they raced through the night, the wind rushing past them, the moonlight casting eerie shadows on the ground. He'd been in plenty of combat zones before, but there was something different about this. The stakes felt higher, the tension more palpable. After covering about 5 miles, Clara slowed down and signaled for them to stop. They pulled off into a small clearing where they parked the bikes behind a cluster of trees. The ghost town was only a few miles ahead, hidden in the darkness. Clara dismounted and adjusted her rifle strap, her eyes scanning the terrain ahead. We walk from here, she said quietly. Stay sharp. Karina drew her sword, her face set in determination. Black Dawn won't know what hit them. Darren checked his shotgun, the runes along the barrel glowing faintly in the moonlight. Let's hope not. As they moved out, Omega padded silently at Clara's side, his senses on high alert. The rest of the team fanned out, moving through the trees like ghosts, their weapons ready, their focus sharp. The ghost town lay ahead, a decrepit collection of old buildings, their wood rotting, their windows shattered. The wind howled through the empty streets, and the entire place seemed to be held together by nothing more than the weight of history and dust. Yet somewhere in those ruins, Black Dawn was hiding, waiting. The time for battle was close. Back at the workshop, the tension was thick in the air. Every member of the pack knew what was about to happen, and although they were no strangers to danger and high-stakes missions, this was different. This was Gunnar, their alpha, about to undergo a life-changing procedure, and the uncertainty hung over them like a dark cloud. Eli stood in the middle of the workshop, her table covered in meticulously laid-out tools, surgical equipment, and the newly designed prosthetic arm that she, Jewel, and Aeliana Vale had spent countless hours perfecting. The arm gleamed under the soft lighting, intricate runes engraved into its sleek metal surface, designed to fuse seamlessly with Gunnar's body. It wasn't just a piece of equipment, it was a symbol of their hope, their effort to restore him to full strength. Jewel stood beside Eli, her hands steady as she double-checked every detail. Aeliana Vale, as always, was composed and regal, but her silver eyes betrayed a hint of concern as she surveyed the room, her staff held firmly in her hands. "Everything ready?" Clara asked, her voice low but commanding. Eli nodded, glancing at Jewel for confirmation. "As ready as we can be. It's a complicated procedure, but we've tested every aspect. The arm is ready to be fused to his bone, and the runes should help with the healing process." Aeliana stepped forward, her voice soothing but firm. "We'll be with him every step of the way, guiding the magic through the procedure, but this will take time, and we will need complete focus." At that moment, the door to the workshop creaked open, and Gunnar stepped inside. He was silent, his one good eye surveying the room and the gathered pack. His movements were slower than usual, his body still weakened from the battles he'd fought, both physically and mentally. The loss of his arm and eye had taken its toll, but his resolve had never wavered. His gaze fell on the prosthetic arm, and for a moment, a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. The pack gathered around as Gunnar moved to the operating table. Jewel and Eli exchanged glances, the weight of the moment pressing down on them. Aeliana took her place beside Gunnar, her staff glowing softly as she began to prepare the magical aspect of the procedure. Eli approached Gunnar, her voice calm but tinged with concern. "We'll begin the fusion now. This will take time, and it will be painful, but we'll get you through this." Gunnar lay back on the table, his body tense as he prepared for what was to come. As the process began, Aeliana raised her staff, and a soft, radiant light filled the workshop. The runes on the prosthetic arm began to glow in response, and Jewel moved to assist Eli as they started the delicate procedure of attaching the arm to Gunnar's body. The fusion would be a complex blend of magic and science, designed to bind the arm to Gunnar's bone and integrate it into his nervous system. Gunnar's body tensed as the magic flowed through him, his face contorting in pain, but he didn't make a sound. "We're almost there," Eli whispered, her focus entirely on the task at hand. The minutes stretched on, each one feeling like an eternity as the room was filled with the soft hum of magic and the sharp focus of the team. Aeliana guided the energy with precision, her voice murmuring ancient incantations as she kept the balance between the physical and magical elements of the procedure. Finally, after what felt like hours, the glow around the arm began to fade, and the fusion was complete. Gunnar's new arm, sleek and powerful, was now a part of him, the runes etched into the metal faintly shimmering as they settled into place. Eli stepped back, wiping the sweat from her brow, and looked at Jewel, who gave her a nod of approval. The hard part was over. Aeliana lowered her staff, her face calm but weary. "It is done." Gunnar lay still, his breathing ragged but steady. He turned his head to look at Eli, his voice hoarse. "Keebler, that arm better be as good as you said." Eli smiled, relief flooding her features. "It's better than good. It's you." The pack stood silently, watching their alpha as he slowly sat up, his new arm gleaming in the light. The battle was far from over, but for now they had won a small victory. The surgery was complete,